Today's video is inspired by last week's video where I talk about my fear of flying. You have to go watch that video. I don't want to explain the whole story here. But it got me thinking about anxiety and how anxiety is on the rise. And it just seems wherever you turn, you hear about anxiety. You watch TV, the commercials constantly bombarding you about how you need this and this and this because you have these symptoms and you have anxiety. It's everywhere. You go on social media, everywhere you turn, talking about people struggling with anxiety. And I agree, anxiety is something that needs to be addressed, needs to be looked at. It's not fun feeling anxious and worrying all the time and feeling irritable, not being able to sleep because you're worried, having headaches because of anxiety, or the spectrum of things that a person can experience from mild heart palpitations to full-blown panic attacks. Anxiety is not a pretty thing, for sure. But today I wanted to take a different angle about anxiety. I started to look at things that actually can trigger anxiety that you might not be aware of, and how they impact you, and how they might make you think that you are struggling with anxiety when in fact it's something that you're doing that you could stop doing that would make you feel a whole lot better. The first thing that could cause anxiety is being hungry. I call it having an anxiety attack. I know, I just made that word up, but I thought it was kind of funny. And after all, this is my channel, so I can make up words if I want to. When you don't eat or skip a meal, like all of us do, because we're so busy all the time, we tend to miss a meal here or miss a meal there, and maybe we start feeling jittery and anxious and irritable, and it's probably because you are having an anxiety attack, because your blood sugar levels have dropped, and you're releasing cortisol and adrenaline to your blood system, which actually spark the fight or flight mechanism in our bodies. So perhaps it would be a good idea to be aware of the last time you ate. And if you tend to be a very busy person and can't stop for meals, take snacks along with you. Make sure that your blood sugar levels are even, and then you'll probably diminish the feelings of anxiety. Now, the second thing that can cause anxiety is kind of a bummer. It is what is in our food. Yeah, and typically the food that we enjoy eating, like candy, processed food, snacks, pastries, cereals, soft drinks, sodas, you name it. All these things that have all these additives in them, MSG that is put in products to make them taste better, to give things a longer shelf life, the food dyes that make food look pretty, everything from red dye that would be put in a yogurt, to yellow dye that would be put in an ice lolly. All these things can affect our moods. Studies have even been done to show that children who consume high levels of red dye or yellow dye significantly changes their behaviors, makes them more aggressive and more hyper. And I can imagine like a whole day of consuming these kind of things. It's going to affect your nervous system. You're not feeding your brain good food, and it would elevate a person's level of anxiety. So I would strongly suggest that we have a good look at our diet. And if we are prone to anxiety, maybe when we are actually eating, we're eating things that actually trigger anxiety, and maybe we need to consider reducing those things. And number 3 is caffeine. I know, I am such a killjoy, but I actually want you to feel better. And I know that consuming too much caffeine, whether it be from coffee, tea, energy drinks, or even chocolate, I know, I'm still going to continue eating chocolate, but we have to be aware that these things can cause heart palpitations, make us feel jittery, and make us think we're having an anxiety attack when in fact it's what we've had to drink or eat. So also, caffeine can also suppress the amount of vitamin B production in your body. Now, vitamin B is a really important vitamin for helping repair nerve damage and helping us to stabilize our mood. So we really should consider the effects that caffeine can have on us and make sure that our vitamin B levels are where they need to be. The fourth thing that might cause anxiety is over-the-counter drugs. You go in, you have a cold, and you take something for your cold, or you have a headache, you take something for your headache, and they have caffeine in them. And this could actually trigger anxiety. Also, supplements that are used for weight loss often have caffeine in them, and this could actually trigger anxiety. So I would recommend that when you are buying over-the-counter drugs, that you have a good look at what is in them, because you might be suddenly experiencing anxiety and not contribute it to the correct source. So have a look at that one, and maybe that'll help you out. The fifth cause of anxiety is medical issues. And this is anxiety is very common in people who suffer from diabetes, which makes sense because diabetics often have problems with their blood sugar levels, and when they dive, they can go into a hypoglycemic state, which would make a person feel dizzy, might have heart palpitations, sweating, shaking, dizziness, weakness, nausea, all these things that look very, very much like anxiety. Person who has diabetes could also experience a lot of anxiety just staying on top of their diabetes and keeping in control of it, because after all, it is something that is quite serious. There are other health issues that can create anxiety, such as thyroid problems. Thyroid problems are so common. In the UK alone, 1 in 20 people suffer from a thyroid problem, and thyroid problems can trigger anxiety in a person. So if you're finding that you're feeling really anxious, and let's say you don't have diabetes, you're eating well, you're not eating a lot of processed foods and everything that I've just mentioned above, maybe you should go to the doctor and ask for a blood test. That is how simple it is to get your thyroid tested. You just need a blood test, and then you will know, and then you can go forward accordingly and maybe reduce these horrible feelings of anxiety. Number 6 is something that is probably more common in more elderly populations than younger populations, and that is people who are on a lot of medications. All these medications have some sort of effects, and all of them together can create a lot of problems, and those problems can look like an anxiety. So I would be talking to my doctor about the effects that one medication is having against the other, and especially if you're not feeling well. I'll give you an example. I'm on thyroid medication. Can talk forever about thyroid problems. I had my thyroid removed 21 years ago, and I never knew something as simple as taking calcium can actually reduce the effects of my thyroid medication. So what ended up happening, because we were unaware of that, I was on a very high dose for my thyroid, because every time I got my thyroid tested, it was testing low. So my medication was bumped up, and this went on for years until I learned that I should not be taking calcium with my thyroid medication. Now, because my thyroid medication was so high, I was having the jitters, I was very anxious all the time, I couldn't sleep, had massive insomnia, and all I needed to do was learn how one thing interacts with my medication, and then I stopped taking the calcium at the same time that I take my medication, and now my medication for my thyroid has been cut in half, and that's just incredible. So I'm so relieved that I learned this. So perhaps do a little bit of research. If you're not feeling well and you're taking a few medications and maybe even taking supplements along with it, I would want to see how they all interact with each other and make sure that that isn't the cause of your anxiety. So the 7th thing that can cause anxiety is not getting enough sleep. Now, studies are beginning to show that it's not the length of sleep that you get, it's the quality of sleep. They're discovering that it's very important to enter into states of deep sleep where your brain waves are slowing down and your body is having enough time to replenish itself, to rest. That's what sleep is doing, is where we're resting and restoring ourselves for the next day. And when that is not happening, when our brain is not getting the proper rest, when our body's not resting properly, our brain actually goes into fight-flight mode and becomes very hyperactive. So when we have a lack of sleep, we might find ourselves very agitated, on edge, very nervous, irritable, and even anxious. So I would be having a good look at the quality of my sleep. Now, one thing they found that interferes with sleep, that's had a remarkable impact on sleep patterns in recent populations, of course, is technology. Of course, we were going to go there to that horrible topic of technology. How many people nowadays don't go to bed with their iPhones or their laptop? We all do. And studies have shown that the blue screens, the light that it emits, the blue light that it emits, actually really messes around with our melatonin levels. Now, melatonin is really important because it tells us that it's time now to get ready to feel tired and go to sleep. But when we're exposed to blue light, which we are naturally throughout the day, but when we're exposed to it superficially, through televisions and through our phones and through our laptops and stuff, it actually impedes the melatonin from being created, and it affects our ability to get a good night's sleep. So of course, we're not going to end up entering into deep sleep, and we're going to end up feeling very irritable and tired the next day, and then maybe even have issues with anxiety. So it's well worth looking at our habits and the things that we're doing to jeopardize ourselves. So the 8th thing that can actually make a person feel anxious, and I know I haven't stopped talking about technology yet. Oh my gosh, I'm such a pain in the backside, aren't I? Yeah, social media can create a lot of anxiety in a person. And think about it. Like, we've got all these influences on social media telling you have to do this, you got to push yourself to do that, how you can be a better person doing this and how you can be doing that, and you got to look like me and you got to dress like me and you need to be rich like me. And there's so much pressure, and it's an unrealistic world. It's not the real world. It is a world that is projected to you where you only get to see a few moments out of a person's whole life. And some of these YouTube channels, oh my goodness, these people are amazingly talented. They can make you feel like you've watched their whole week and you've watched 20 minutes of their life out of the whole week. And not only that, they've decided to choose to show you what they want you to see. And yeah, it raises a very, very unrealistic standard of what real life actually is. And I think people can watch that stuff and it creates a lot of anxiety and pressure to live up to that standard. Also, I think that when we're on social media, we're constantly checking all our likes and dislikes and our comments. Now, I don't have Instagram, I don't have all these others, I don't even know what they're called. But many people do have all these different places to check their likes and their comments and their followings and all this kind of stuff. I can't imagine the amount of pressure that causes and the amount of anxiety it can cause. So I think it's a good idea to limit the amount of time we spend on these different venues, and how much do they have control over us, or do we have control over them? Because if they have control over us, they probably are affecting us emotionally. And in the area of anxiety, I would not be surprising to hear. And in fact, there's so many studies that have been done on anxiety levels in youth, and especially because they're the generation that are being raised with an iPhone in their hand when they're like 2 months old. So it's something that's worth thinking about, and maybe putting in a little bit more restrictions on screen times. Nutrient deficiencies. Things that our bodies need to thrive and grow, to repair our brain, to repair our nervous system. All these things, vitamin B, C, E, very, very important. Vitamin B is so connected to mood stability and our metabolism. So if your vitamin B levels are low, you're likely to feel anxiety. So that is something that you can easily get checked, and I would encourage you to rule these things out. Magnesium is also known to reduce stress. So if you think that you might be deficient in these things, it would be a good idea to change your diet accordingly. And if you can't get enough vitamin B and C and E and magnesium in your diet naturally, it might not hurt to supplement it with some kind of a supplement, because I have actually witnessed people who've been very jittery just look at their vitamin B levels and their magnesium levels and change them accordingly, and it has changed their lives. So I highly recommend that you look into these, girls, okay? Please check out your magnesium levels and your vitamin B levels. You'll be surprised at how much better you will feel if you get those under control. And last but not least, one thing that can cause feelings of anxiety is being dehydrated. Being dehydrated is linked to fatigue, to stomach cramps, headaches, and even anxiety. So make sure you drink your water. So there you have it. 9 things that we could be doing or not doing that could be increasing our levels of anxiety. I have found this list extremely helpful. It's challenged me. There's areas that I'm going to make some tweaks and some changes because I want to feel good as I launch into my 60s. Did I tell you I'm 61? Yeah, I'm 61. Anyway, I want to take good care of myself because I want to be able to enjoy the years that, God willing, has ahead of me. So if you found this video helpful and you'd like to see more content like this, I'd be so happy if you would hit the like button, maybe subscribe, and hit the notification button so that you get notified when my videos come out. And I can't thank you enough for following me today. I've had so much fun talking about this. And what I have to say is God bless you, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.